Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Thursday, September 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. We'll have roll call. Councilmember Delory.
Present.
Councilmember Mandel. Councilmember Justin.
Here.
Vice President McKinnis is in transit. President Benda.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Delegate, Corporation Council Richard Garriott. So now the salute to the flag.
Councilman Mandel, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Resident Summer, the month of September. And I believe Councilwoman Treston has something.
Thank you. I hope first that all of your children had a great day at first day of school. And I just want to fill you in on some of the things that we've been doing. Assemblywoman Miller, myself, and Legislative Board have been talking and gathering information about the Loop Parkway Orchard. There are only 3 roadways off the barrier island, and we are all vulnerable to any disaster, and we must ensure that our routes are functioning. On behalf of all gathered this evening, I want to take a moment to recognize the loss of members of our community and those that have died during Ida outside Long Beach. Barbara Bernardino, who cared deeply about the city, went for a hospital, and co-founder of Beach Bay. Bob Shanley, an avid artist, founder of the West End's Visual Arts and Arts on the Plaza. And our deep sympathy goes to the family of our CSE President John Mooney on the passing of his brother. On a personal note, there are going to be a few tough days ahead for a number of your family and your friends as we honor those that we lost on September 11th. It's hard to believe it's going to be 20 years. Each person has their own unique memory of that day, and I ask that we all be gentle with each other in our experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes. We'll be doing our city manager's report tonight after the agenda items. So we can move on to the agenda.
Okay, the first item is approval of minutes for prior meetings, July 6th, July 20th, and August 3rd, 2021. Have a motion approved. Second. Voting, Councilmember Delory.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel. Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase police vehicle terminal computers from the sole source provider.
Okay. So that's going to be our police commissioner.
Open the big box. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Hi, so this item is for our individual computers, our modems, and all of the communications network stuff that goes in the computers. We basically have one vendor that provides this particular, I guess you would say, hardware that goes into the vehicles. It is the particular items that are in front of you are for the new vehicles that have been ordered, so that we can continue on with those and not have a break in our ability to replace our vehicles once they have been received from the Ford Motor Corporation. Questions?
Any questions from the council members? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, next item.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds from the 2021-22 fiscal year.
Yeah, I have an amendment I want to propose on the bus transportation temporary salaries transfer to $134,692. It says it's being transferred to regular salaries. First regular salaries.
Mr. Bento, can you just check the microphone?
It is on.
Let's speak up.
Okay. That better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'll get closer. That first regular salaries should be bus transportation / regular salaries.
Do I have a second? Voting, Councilmember Lurie.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel. Councilmember Trustin.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes. Okay, I don't know if our comptroller is going to say anything about this.
Folks coming up to speak, you don't have to stand up in the box, you can use the stand at the mic stand there, we just have something we did very close up to the podium.
But they could be taller or something.
If you want to stand in the box, go right ahead.
It's kind of fun.
I'll try.
It's only leaving an option.
Okay, so this item is to fund the changes in personnel salaries and move from the part-time to full-time for several positions in our transportation department. I will let Tommy Canner talk about it because he will speak as to the specifics of who's being, mostly their CSE members, so he can talk to those changes.
Thank you, Ian. Good evening, everyone. The funds that are being transferred from the beach maintenance department, we had somebody retire, so we had a surplus in our full-time line. So we're going to be transferring funds to the tax assessor's office and to the, what was the other one? Tax receiver. That's to fund 2 great changes for 2 employees that have been here, one 15 years, one 25 years. They'll be assuming a lot more responsibility than they already have. So that'll keep us from hiring part-time people we're changing the 3rd floor to serve the public better. When you get out of the elevator, you see there's a new windows we put up. So these people are spearheading that. So when you come to a council meeting, you'll be able to pay your water bill, you'll be able to get a parking permit, other stuff like that. So it's well deserved and well overdue for these people. All right.
All right, any questions from the council members? Hearing none, any from the public? All right, hearing none, next item.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for water sewer testing at the water treatment plant with the sole responsible bidder.
I see our public works commissioner coming out of the bullpen.
This is a resolution authorizing the city to enter into an
Hello? There you go.
This is a resolution authorizing the city to enter into an agreement for water testing at the wastewater treatment plant and the water purification plant. Bids were received from the Office of Purchasing on Thursday, August 26, 2021 at 2 p.m. In this case, there was a sole responsible bidder was Pace Analytical Services. The bid price was $60,055. This is $5,480 less than the last contract with Pace Analytical. This Pace Analytical performs mandatory testing required by the regulatory agencies at the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant. Just for example, for the wastewater treatment plant, there's certain tests such as biochemical oxygen demand, VOD, TSS, suspended solids, future coliform, ammonia. They do testing 2 times a week at that facility, in the influent and effluent facilities. For the water treatment plant, they do testing for coliform, E. coli, 1-foot acting, and then some other as well. So basically, I recommend it going to Pace Analytical. Questions?
All right, any questions from the council members? All right, I'd like to hear the first one down, we're actually saying. Any questions from the public? All right,
And finally, is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase various size trash bags from lowest responsible bidders.
I'll take care of this one as well. This resolution authorizes the city to purchase various size trash bags for street maintenance, sanitation, beach maintenance, and various other city departments. Bids were received in the Office of Purchasing on Thursday, August 26th at 2:30 p.m. The low bidder on the 30 by 36 inch 2-mil black garbage bag was $16.23 per case, and that was United Sales USA Board. Just so you know, last year's price was $15.61 a case, so there was a reduction for that one type of bag. And then there's another 4 categories of bags. And the low bidder on those was Central Poly Bag Board. They're bid for 4 different types of bags. It was $24 per case for 40 by 48 inch 3-mil black bags. The previous price was $37.75. So you had a reduction there, a significant reduction. For 40 inch by 48 inch 3-mil clear bags, it's $26 a case. It used to be $42.20. So that's another significant reduction. And that's per case. And there's 100 bags per case. For the 33 by 40 inch 2-mil clear bags, the price is $18 a case. The previous price was $19.51. So again, it's a reduction. So that's great. And last but not least, is 24 inch by 33 inch clear bags at a $19 a case. The previous price was $22.31. So pretty much a no-brainer. It's a reduction all across the board. So I recommend awarding purchase of trash bags to United Sales USA and Central Poly.
All right. Any questions from the council members?
Commissioner, just in general, where would be using the clear bags as opposed to the other bags? Is there any rhyme or reason?
That's a good question. Where do you use the clear bags now?
The clear bags are to delineate when we're doing the recycling on the beach. So garbage goes to the black bag, and because we have the same crew doing it on the same truck. So black bag's garbage, clear bag's recycling. So anybody that's out there can clearly see the difference.
Thank you. That was also meant for everybody here as well, and myself. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions from the council members? All right. Any questions from the public? And Ms. Hessian.
Just curious about the total price.
There is no total price. It depends on how many we order.
What we're paying less than last year.
Got it.
Right.
It's less across the board on every item.
Okay. Any more questions from the public? All right. Seeing none, let's move on to item 6.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the continued retention of Melvin and Myers LLP.
Okay. I'll let our city manager.
Okay, we should do 6 and 7 together because they're both going to come up and present. And then I will finish up with talking about funding.
Okay, item 7 is a resolution authorizing the continued retention of M3 Partners LP.
Good evening, I'm Maria DeConza from O'Melveny and Myers. M3 and O'Melveny were retained in March and April of this past year for a very short duration of 3-month retention each for what we call the Phase 1 engagement. Phase 1 was the assessment phase, and today we have the extension of the agreements for Phase 2, which is the implementation phase of the restructuring. Brian from M3 will give a brief update on what we accomplished during Phase 1. Many of the items are continuing in Phase 2. Due to the attorney-client nature of the work that we're doing and reports that we're giving to the city manager and the city council, these matters and the draft work product have to remain confidential at this point in time. There will be updates at the appropriate time as we go on. So Brian is going to give a summary of some of the things from Phase 1 and what we're working on, continuing to work on in Phase 2.
Great. Thank you, Maria. Good evening, everybody. As Maria noted, since being engaged in the spring, M3 and O'Melveny have been advising Long Beach on numerous critical work streams on a basis. These work streams closely mirror the phase one engagement letter that people have seen. We worked with the city comptroller to assess the city's current cash position to assure adequate liquidity to fund critical near-term operating expenditures. We've also conducted a deep dive on the city's historical financials, working closely with the city comptroller and manager. Initially analyzing and benchmarking Long Beach revenues and expenses. We've created revised financial reporting structures to gain a clearer picture of where the city's financial stress has kind of come from. So we're matching ongoing operating expenses with ongoing revenues and looking at more legacy costs and expenses as well. The O'Melody team has been providing legal analysis of the city's rights under certain contracts and agreements and on current open litigation issues. O'Melody has been helpful illustrating the applicable state law related to the city's obligations. Once we have a solid understanding of the city's historical financial performance, the current level of long-term and contingent liabilities, as well as the critical issues the city is facing, we began working towards the development and review of strategic alternatives for the city to help improve its fiscal position. To that end, we've created and continue to maintain a long-term financial model to aid us in illustrating the impact of all strategic alternatives that we explore. The key drivers of the model are particularly prospective taxes, incremental non-tax revenue, required general fund balance and reserves, cost reduction opportunities where appropriate, and potential litigation settlements and concessions from other stakeholders. We're currently working with the city regarding settlement options and meetings with the neighborhood representatives. We're continuing to explore areas for potential shared services with local municipalities as well as the county. We're still identifying additional aid packages from federal, state, and county programs. And we've been in discussions with CMA, the city's fiscal advisor, regarding the city's current municipal bonds and outstanding and ability to borrow in the future. O'Melody and M3 have met and continue to meet with the city manager, comptroller, corporate counsel on a bi-weekly basis to discuss all matters of work product, and we continue to do this going forward. We've met with the city council on several occasions, given them updates on all work product and addressed issues as they come up. With that, I'll turn it back over to Maria.
As we've said in the past at council meetings, the city's problems were decades in the making, and it's going to take time and hard work to correct them. With the extended agreements, we hope to be a part of the solution for Long Beach. Our primary go-forward objectives are to work on options for settling the litigation and a holistic restructuring of the city's revenues and liabilities. These objectives, which we began to work on in phase one and continue to work on in phase two, really align with the issues that were identified in Moody's that were presented to the council, I believe that were the last meeting, which may end up getting the city an increase in its bond rating if these things can be resolved. The structure of the continued engagement on an hourly basis allows the city to expand or contract as needed so that we can be available and assist the city and its other advisors as we go forward. Understand the city manager can provide an update on the funding issues, and we're here for the council with any questions. Thank you.
So what we have, can you hear me okay? So what we had when we initially started was 2 contracts at $750,000 each. M3 did a lot of the number crunching along with CMA, that is our municipal advisors, and they're paid. O'Melody had a contract as well as $750,000. They have not reached the $750,000 that was agreed upon, but the date of the expiration has come. Initially, when we talked about the funding of this money, it was coming, we had asked for FRB. We had a strong understanding that the money would, in fact, be coming from FRB from the state. I had a conversation with FRB yesterday, and what I requested, instead of just the $1.5 million, that each municipality in the state that is having financial difficulty, and Long Beach is number one for the entire state of New York, can get up to $5 million. And so Long Beach has received about $300,000 years past to do some work. We had asked for about $900,000 to do new projects, which included to pay for CMA, our financial advisors. We need a time and attendance system called ExecuTime. The city does not have a fixed asset system so that we can keep track of all of our fixed assets at better and have a better understanding. Parking meters, we are doing a parking meters study, and so we're asking them to pay for the parking meters, any cost to for parking meters, and cameras, additional cameras on the boardwalk. And so that was the $900,000. That left $3.8 million. So I asked FRB to fund us the total $3.8 million so that at the very end, this municipality, Long Beach, will have received the total of $5 million from FRB, because we are number one, the most fiscally stressed city in the state. Currently, the FRB potentially could meet in October. Because of the change in government, the governor, their meeting has been postponed. We know we have a strong likelihood that we will get every dime that we have asked for. And also, we have reached out to others as well to get funding just for the city as well. So Ina and the state comptroller, Ina and I have looked at, and we continue to look at other alternatives depending on when FRB has their meeting and how we can continue to move forward until they approve our funds.
For those that don't know what FRB is, it's the Financial Restructuring Board
For the state.
in the state of New York.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions from the council members? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Mr. Lester?
Missing the microphone.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have several questions.
Use the mic,
Yes, I told you I was missing the microphone.
Now it is. Okay. Don, back in June, you had said that in July there would be a presentation. Was this the presentation that you were talking about?
No.
Okay. On June 15th, you had said we were going to have a presentation in July. Is that still forthcoming?
It's still forthcoming. We're not ready.
Okay. And how much have we received so far from the state?
For FRB,
Yeah.
the $300,000, the initial money for the 1.5, they haven't met. It has to be approved by their board.
And have we had to pay?
No,
So even though the contract calls for payments,
no, we haven't made any payments.
now you said that Mulvaney has not used up the entire 750 yet.
That is correct.
That you said that by the expiration was May 31st. They still, as of today's date, they still have not used up the 750.
That is correct.
Okay, and how about M3?
M3 has used theirs.
And they used theirs by the expiration,
Probably a little after. I have to look at their invoice.
but we're continuing their contract now. More than 3 months have passed since that time, since it expired. Have they run up another 750?
No, they have not.
Do we know about
I
it?
can get that information for you.
Okay. And the continuation, I know that Mulvaney was talking about a phase 2, but the phase 2 was not part of the initial contract. Do we have the phase 2, what phase 2 would represent? Or-
The phase 2, the contract, the information is based on an hourly, and Maria explained in there what in fact they would be doing in the next phase.
But it's not written down?
Yeah, it's in the contract, based on an hourly rate.
No,
And
no.
so based on on what we did in the very first contract, if you went through it, that you would have saw that there were things that were identified for sure what they would do. Now the city can say, no, we don't want you, O'Melveny or M3 to do this. We will have CMA do this, or we can do it in-house.
Okay, the initial contract just reflects a phase one. That's what I was.
Absolutely. So phase 2 is what they're approving tonight, which is hourly. So if you would like Maria to come back up to speak about what they will be doing in phase 2, it's a continuation, and where we are trying to have the case solved and what they're doing, or Brian come back up, I'm sure that.
No, I thought it would be in writing somewhere. That's what I was looking for. Okay, and finally, M3 had given us a whole list of things that they were going to do in the beginning, and none of them that I see would be, attorney-client privilege. Have they done that? Created the 13-week cash flow, development of long-term budget projections, stuff like that?
Yes,
And when do we get to see that?
when we are ready to give the reports.
When you're ready? Okay.
Yes, we have a lot to go through right now, and as was stated early, a lot of this stuff is still client privilege. And so we want to make sure what we're putting out is correct and ready for everyone to see. So when the council has approved all the information they have received, it will be ready for the public.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Any other questions from the public? All right, seeing none, move on to item 8.
Item 8 is resolution authorizing the continued retention of special labor counsel.
Good evening, everyone. Rich Barrios, Corporation Counsel. So this special labor counsel is kind of, I guess, a misnomer to some degree. We've had Ron Schoenig on retainer already as of January 2020. What this does is modify the current retainer to a more of a blended retainer where we have a flat rate whereby I can use my office or our negotiating committee on labor issues to reach out to Ron Schoenig directly and just gain consultation and advice without getting hit hour for hour on billing. So there's a flat retainer involved in that. And they also handle a number of state and federal litigation cases right now. But the main purpose of this is a blended retainer, so we have a flat rate whereby I can consult with labor counsel on collective bargaining issues, pending grievances, etc.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Any questions from the council members? Seeing none, any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to item 9.
Item 9 is resolution to adjourn city council meeting September 21st, 2020.
Okay, I hope everyone's... All right, I guess I'll nobody else has said anything. It's just a number of the staff and some of the council members will be trained that week, so we're just going to not have a meeting. So, any questions from the council? All right, any questions from the public? Seeing none, let's move on to the added item, item 10.
Item 10 has been added by unanimous consent. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing the extension of the contract memorializing city manager's employment.
All right, so this is our city manager's contract expired on August 31st, but there is a 3-month extension we can execute in the contract, which will take her through the end of November. So this is to enact that 3-month extension, and we're doing that while we are finalizing her new contract. So with that, any questions from the council? All right, any questions from the public?
I hope yes, watch.
All right, seeing none, we could move on to the city manager's report.
You want to go on?
All right, let's do the vote. Yeah, why not? Get it out of the way.
Sorry. Yes, item 2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase these vehicle terminals computers from a sole source provider. You should just move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing transfer of funds from 2021-22 fiscal year. Who would introduce and move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for water sewer testing at the water treatment plant with the sole responsible bidder. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase various size trash bags from the lowest responsible bidders. Introduce and move the adoption of this item. Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel. Councilmember Trust.
Yes, and thank you again to DPW staff for saving us money.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the continued retention of LongBeachCOA and Myers LLP. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second. Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel. Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the continued retention of Andrew Marcus LP. Will introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes, and thank you, Roger Marie, for being here tonight.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes, and I'd also like to thank you for putting up with us and getting our city's financial history together, and much appreciated. Yes, yes, yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the continued retention of special labor accounts. Introduce and move the adoption of this item. Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes. Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 9 is a resolution to adjourn the city council meeting of September 21st, 2021. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Finally, item 10. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing the extension of the contract for Authorizing city manager's employment. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will 110%.
Who will second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bluer.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Trust.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
At this time, I want to apologize to my council members and to the public for being late for this meeting. It is not something that I did lightly, so I apologize. And with that, I vote yes.
President Bender.
Since I don't want Tommy Cannon mad at me, I vote yes. Thanks, Judge. All right, so with that, why don't we move on to the city manager's report?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. The very first thing I would like to do is to thank all of the staff, beach maintenance, street maintenance, sanitation, lifeguards, and then the administrative staff for all of the hard work we had to do this summer. Many of us work anywhere between 6 to 7 days doing the street clean, police department, just trying to keep the city moving in a positive direction and keeping it clean throughout the summer. And that's a lot of hard work that I don't think a lot of people recognize how hard you work. So I want to say that, go back and tell your staff that I appreciate each and every one of them for everything that they have done for this city. And again, thank you very much. Our first person that will get up will be Police Commissioner Walsh, that will have a brief statement.
I just wanted to bring to the attention to the council some good work that took place basically this week. Yesterday, Officer Brian Bates was on patrol in the city, driving around, and we have plate readers in our cars. And what that does is it'll tell you if the car has an expired registration, if there's a problem with insurance, and other things. This particular alert comes over that the car that had gone past him had a man in it who was considered armed and dangerous and suicidal. The car was from Florida. So Officer Bates goes around the block, locates the vehicle around the block, and finds the man filling the car with a gasoline container. He again goes over, talks to our dispatch center. They confirm, yes, that's the car. He gets out of the car, approaches the man, gets the man's identity, again confirms that this is the man who is wanted in Florida as a missing person. He is considered armed, dangerous, and suicidal. And inside the car, he finds a loaded .40 caliber firearm with 37 rounds of ammunition. So, great work. That's not all he did this week. On Monday, he was driving around with a plate reader, and he gets a notification for stolen plate on a vehicle. Drives around again, finds the vehicle impounded. Today, the man comes in to get his vehicle, who subsequently winds up getting arrested because in his trunk of that car was a loaded firearm with high-capacity magazines as well. So I wanted to highlight some of the great work. This officer came to us from the MTA. He's been here for less than a year, and in less than 5 days, less than 4 days, he's managed to take 2 guns off the street and probably save a man's life and who knows what else, considering the situation he's in. So I just wanted to point that out to the council. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be our comptroller, Nina Resnick.
This is just a brief update on the city's controller's office work in conjunction with employee from the corporate counsel office. We had a reimbursement process by FEMA last week in an amount of $180,000 for the expenses that the city has incurred in connection with Isaias storm. I'm sure that everybody remembers the storm from last year, and the city got reimbursed for 75% of the expenses that the city had incurred in connection with responding to this work, and that was pretty much done in a record time, and I'm really proud of the work that my staff did, that the city staff did. So that's it.
You understand what we're putting in for the people?
Oh, yeah, so, we're currently thinking, there's always a disaster, right? So, right now, we're also working on getting reimbursed for expenses that the city had incurred in responding to COVID. In the beginning, there was a lot of work done in connection with closing boardwalk, getting all the PPE necessary. There was a lot of overtime, and all of those expenses we had submitted to FEMA. That's an amount of about $600,000. That's under review by them right now, and I will update everyone on what we get done. Thank you.
So, when I first came, what I did say, and that we continue, is that we will continue to work on getting reimbursed for anything and everything we can. We will apply for a grant. I see legislator Denise Ford is here, and she knows well how many times I've called her up and said, I need money. And so I'm proud of the staff that now when storms come up, even with the latest storm, we start tracking expenses even before FEMA says it's a disaster. So that as soon as the storm is over and we've recovered, we can send our expenses in so we can be reimbursed, which will help the city move forward with its financial problems. The next speaker will be, thanks, Ian. The next speaker will be John McNally, Public Relations.
So, good evening, council, good evening, everybody. City manager asked that I give a couple of brief updates. The first is 30 to 40 years in the making. Love it, hate it. Next Tuesday is groundbreaking for the super block with Engelberg. There, we're going to be putting a section on our website that provides updates that are provided to us by Engelberg, and that'll give everybody stats, their work construction plan and what you can expect in the weeks ahead, because obviously this is a significant construction that's going to be taking place over numerous years. So we'll be trying to keep the public as informed as we can as it progresses. They are also going to be designating a point person that will eventually get the number up on the website now to the public. That will be available for any member of the public or any of our elected officials to reach out to express concerns or pose questions to. And lastly, those that will recall, the Industrial Development Agency who provided them with payment in lieu of taxes in order to move the development forward, had promised that they were going to do a liaison committee that involved local representatives, I think some labor folks, and a couple of residents, so that there would be a feedback loop on that level as well. That has now been, all of those individuals have been named. It's 2 residents, 1 representative from the city council, I believe legislative board is also going to be on it. A member from Engelberg, obviously, a member from the labor community, and the chairman of the IDA board. So, again, 35 years in the making, that project has long been litigated, if nothing else. It's going to be moving forward next Tuesday. In my role as a COVID guy, I will now give the COVID update. So as of 2 days ago, 61.3% of Long Beach's total population had been vaccinated. That's up 2 percentage points over, I would say, the past 3 weeks to a month. So baby steps, we're getting there. That compares to 66% countywide. There were last week 62 new confirmed cases of COVID within Long Beach. That's vacillated. It's actually down a little bit from where it was over the past 3 weeks. I would say we were at 70 and 85 and 95, and now we're down to 62. But any particular data points, a little bit of a blip, but that is at least hopeful. The 7-day rolling average for positivity rate for Long Island is 4.4%. That compares with 3.3% statewide. So Long Island, Nassau, and Suffolk County are higher than we are as a state. The good news is that that seems to have leveled off a little bit. It's picking up here and there, but it seems to have leveled off over the last week to 10 days. But it's still obviously not where we want to be. But the other side of that is hospitals and deaths, hospital rates, available ICU, percentage of available ICUs, beds, and death rates are significantly down from where we saw it last spring and even in the winter. So numbers are not where we want when we're talking about a positivity rate of 4.4, when we're talking the number of new cases at 62. That's the same rough numbers that we were looking at last November. And that's right as we were starting to ramp up into, what was, again, another spike from January. So the Vaxmobile is here, Mount Sinai, South Nassau, and Tom Hempstead, and that Vaxmobile is out in front of Kennedy Plaza on Wednesday. They'll be back in 4 weeks again. They are providing the first doses, but they're also providing boosters for those that are eligible as of right now. Those are people with immunocompromised positions, transplantations, that sort of thing. But we are expecting that in October, the federal government will approve booster shots for the regular population, provided it's 8 months out for the second shot. Testing is widely available. You can get it at City MD. You can get it at the Hottie Group, which is where a lot of the city employees go. Pro Health, Walgreens has a drive-up, and obviously the local physician can provide as well. Precautions that the city is taking really has to do with a lot of the events that we put on. If you notice any of the craft fairs that took place on the boardwalk over the summer, normally there's up to 400 different vendors that are there. This year we didn't allow more than 100, and we put them only on one side of the boardwalk so you wouldn't create the same pinch point and the same crowding situation that we typically had in the past. Fireworks, we did not have a concert and a band shell this year. We invited all of our residents and their friends to go down to their beach of choice so that there wouldn't be one central location where we had thousands of people gathered. And I think that worked out really well. We had a lovely, not quiet, but very spread out fireworks show this past weekend. Fall Festival, as many may be aware, typically we have 10,000 people in Kennedy Plaza over the course of the weekend. This year we are doing just a costume parade for children, along with a pumpkin patch at the rec fields. And as many of you know, we're also in discussions with Irish, with AOH, about how we can make adjustments to Irish Day to make it a little bit safer for everybody as well, with the COVID numbers being what they are. I won't steal his thunder. Joe Brand's going to speak on that in a minute. So, as an administration, we have throughout the pandemic been a little bit more on the conservative side of things. There are communities out there that are going full board, that are still doing the events the way that they planned. But that said, we are not alone in the steps that we have taken. Town of Oyster Bay has canceled their Oyster Fest this year. New York City is a larger event, but their West Indian Day Parade was recently canceled. Coney Island Mermaid Parade, which is very similar to our Irish Day, has been canceled. And just today, the town of Iceland canceled their Apple Festival, which is going to take place next Saturday. So there are other communities obviously taking it seriously, taking the kind of steps that we are. And I think, in discussions with the city council and certainly with the city manager, first and foremost is we want to keep our residents and our employees safe. So that's why we've been taking the steps that we've been taking. Questions?
No. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Joe Brand.
Good evening, everybody. Just to pick up where John left off in terms of events and one of the more popular events that takes place in the city, I wanted to bring everybody current with what's happening with Irish Day. It's been a long couple of months of dialogue and working with one another. But just to give everybody a brief history, we met in early August at our first meeting with representatives from the AOH, and the city stated its desire to move forward with only the parade for public health reasons. That meeting concluded with what we thought to be a fair understanding of our position. The decision to eliminate the street fair portion of the event was made purely in the interest of protecting public health and not have the city support an event or sponsor an event that could lead to a large number of residents, visitors, or city employees being affected. While we understand the importance of the day to the AOH and the local businesses, we are trying to balance that with safety and the health of all involved. After that meeting, as a personal friend and longtime supporter of the AOH when I was a private businessman, I felt obligated to reach out to the parade chair people to get together with them more or less on an impersonal level to see if there was ways we could try to improve how to move forward in a positive fashion. They explained to me the importance of the street fair and how it contributes to, and not only the community, but also to the festival and the overall makeup of the day. And I brought it back to our executive team, our city manager, and the council, and asked if they would entertain hosting the AOH again to let them hear from them what I had already heard. The understanding was everybody knew what was on the table and knew that there were no promises for change, but at least listening and everybody having the same amount of information that I had was felt to be important. That meeting concluded with the AOH stating that without a street fair, there would be no parade. As it turns out, what was explained to us is the street fair is what pays for the parade to happen. The purchase or the appearance of the pipe and drum bands and the groups that come down to march that day are all paid for by the vendor fees and fundraising efforts that are generated by the street fair. So at a crossroads now is big picture. You have number one, if there's no street fair, there's no parade. If there's no parade, there's no Irish Day. If there's no Irish Day, local businesses are affected. So, it's a cumulative effort on the AOH, on the city, and on the business owners. And following that second meeting, a narrative was created, that the city canceled Irish Day. And I'm not standing before you here tonight to point fingers or blame at anybody who created that narrative, but it certainly doesn't lend itself to, working with one another. And again, I don't think that any of the people that were really boots on the ground with the negotiations going on had anything to do with creating that narrative, but it was unfair to city council members and the city manager, because I can stand here before you and tell you that the word cancel never came out of anybody's mouth with regards to either our executive team, the city manager, or the city council. Nonetheless, the narrative creates the buzz, right? And then the buzz gets everybody going, and before you know it, relationships start to deteriorate, and negotiations start to deteriorate, and now it's an us against them mentality that kind of takes everybody nowhere if it begins to sustain itself. Many people in the community called, wrote, posted, and were very positive with suggestions for how to remedy or offer resolutions, and we were very appreciative of that. There were just as many, I'm kidding, there were twice as many that weren't so nice and were offering suggestions of something else we could do. So finding that balance was good, but at no point were the efforts ever abandoned. And I can say that by our executive team, by the city manager being willing to listen to me say, hey, one more time, and council members who even attended some of the meetings with the AOH. And those efforts weren't abandoned by the AOH either. So I think that it's important for everybody to understand that what you may have been reading, what you may have been hearing, and certain levels of frustration that were being exhibited by some, they weren't the group of the people who were working behind the scenes to try to make this thing happen. That said, over the course of the past 48 hours, through suggestions and through, I guess, concessions is the best way to put it, we have progress. A series of compromises by all parties involved to help make this event whole while also making it safe. And while not signed, sealed, and necessarily delivered, both parties are confident that we're moving forward with the day on a somewhat dialed-back version, but at a point where the AOH is relatively satisfied, the city is relatively satisfied, and the community should be relatively satisfied. And I guess that's the nature of any negotiation. Last night, members of our city team were able to sit down with the executive board of the AOH and kind of come up with an agreement in principle, pending some further housekeeping and issues that have to get finalized, some of which are negotiations that are, I guess, somewhat still confidential and somewhat still close to the vest. So, formal announcements about what we're doing will be made. Some of, not all of those concessions include, a threshold for a COVID-19 positivity threshold using the 7-day rolling percentage metrics for Long Island. The parade will step off as normal at 11 a.m. The street fair will take place and will operate until 4 p.m. Mutually agreed upon vendor footprint to avoid crowding, similar to what Mr. McNally just spoke about, what we did up on the boardwalk. Myself and Jerry Cecil will work together to map out footprint of the vendors down west, utilizing the municipal parking lots. We put in the use of facility request with the school district for West Street Playground to try and space the platform up. The idea here is not to have vendors back-to-back or face-to-face, so there's not huge conglomerates of people in certain areas. No amusement rides, ongoing negotiations for the bars and restaurants to close at an earlier hour. Those are the main points. And again, I think I apologize if I'm taking too much of your time, but it was important for everybody to hear the truth, and more important for people to hear that. As negative as it may have come out at times, we didn't give up trying, and like I said, the AOH should be commended. I think the executive team here at City Hall is sick of convening meetings for Irish Day, and hopefully those are just about done. But that's where we stand right now, and as the rest of the information comes out, we'll certainly make it available for you.
I have a question, Joe.
Yeah.
Have you heard from the school administration yet, from the city of Long Beach?
Not yet.
When do you expect to hear from them?
I think it'll be soon, like I said.
Soon as when?
I'll call it tomorrow night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to thank you, Joe, because I know, and everybody else involved in these meetings, both on the AOA side and on the city side. This is not an easy step. You went COVID-19 in the middle of last summer. We were dealing with 50% occupancy on the beach. How do you figure that out? If you know, we'd appreciate, that advice. So we're all going through this together. There has to be level heads, and I think collectively we can make it happen. Smart, safe, and enjoyable. The staff put a lot of time. I was at the second meeting. Liz Dresden was at the second meeting. Never having been to an AOH council meeting discussion on parade and the festival, I enjoyed marching in the parade. So I'm confident that people will get together, like Vice President McGinnis said. Hopefully we can get an answer from the school district about the use of the playground. In addition to the other areas. So, I just want to thank everybody that was involved in all these meetings and the time and effort and energy spent on it. Thank you, Joe.
Well, if there's nothing more on Irish Day, I just wanted to touch on a couple of other things, park and recreation related. Happy to report the swimming pool's new liner is done. It looks beautiful. At 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, we have an engineer's inspection, which should be the final sign-off on it, and water will begin being pumped into it immediately following. Hoping to have it open by the 20th of September. Fall programs are beginning at the rec. Registration is open. There's something there for everyone, including some adult recreation activities that we brought back, including volleyball and men's league softball. Getting back into, we're starting a pickleball program, new pool and gym hours when we reopen. Roy, you'll be happy to know we'll be back on Sundays. You get the pool. Senior classes are ongoing and going really well at the Magnolia Center. And just to echo some of the sentiments that City Manager Gaten spoke of before, I have a fairly vast staff in the summertime. Chief of Patrol, Lieutenants did their usual outstanding job this summer. The Beach Park staff, as much as they put up with on the boardwalk, at the next month's meeting, Ian and I will be providing a financial and beach revenue update for how the beach did this summer. That money doesn't get collected, counted, and put in the bank without the hard work of a lot of members of our beach park. I'd like to commend them for their efforts because we're all going to overlook. Sergeant Corbett's here. The police specials did an amazing job this summer. Tom Cannon and the beach maintenance crew. The weather was awful. None of us got to enjoy the beach as much as we would have liked, but when we did get there, we got what we paid for. And I'm sure most of you got your money's worth too. There are a number of 9/11 events taking place this weekend. Please consult our website for details. Showing in volleyball will kick off nice and early Saturday morning, and Sunday we have the King and Queen of the Beach kids surf contest. So with that, that's my Parks and Recreation and Adventure report.
I just want to make a statement on piggyback on Joe's. This weekend, it is, high rip tides, surf. So if you're going to be on the beach, if you're going to be near the water, just stay safe.
I just wanted to say thank you to Joe and thank you to the team that came together to talk about AOH. And thank you to the AOH members who came. I don't want residents to think, I'm not sure how things happened in the past, that the city manager just made a decision to do this or not to do that. That's not how I operate. I bring every department that is responsible for whatever event that is going on, and we sit and talk about what needs to be done and how to get it done. As Joe stated that he kept coming back and he kept calling the team back saying, look at it, let's look at it this way, let's look at it that way. We had disagreements and we agreed, but at the end of the day, we all came out with an agreement to have the event go on. And as we stated before, we always knew that we agreed to have the parade. It was the festival part with the vendors. So I'm happy to see that we've come to this point. We do have some things to work out, but what we do is that when one doesn't work out, we adapt and we figure out how we can change or do something different. And that's what we've been doing through this entire process. So again, I want to say thank you for everyone that has been working hard on this, because you all have heard me counting dollars about how many people were sitting in the room and the time. And again, I want to say thank you, and that concludes my report.
I make a motion to close the meeting.
I will second, just also wondering, what will the color of this sweatshirt be for the closing? I second.
Let's do it.
Motion to close, Councilman Deloria.
Oh, it's up to me?
Yes.
Councilman Mandel. Councilman Trustin.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
Yes.
President Mandel.
Yes. All right, on to good and welfare. Want to get the slips. In case you haven't been here before, done it before, you get 3 minutes. And provide your feedback. You go in the order that the people signed up. All right, Tina Apostol.
Now, got it. Hello, Tina Posterly, Long Beach. Good evening, everyone. First, I want to say I appreciate the ongoing evaluation you all are doing in the city for the events. Thank you. I know that's no easy thing to do. And honestly, tonight I just wanted to come up with a suggestion in light of everything that was happening with Irish Day and what I imagine will keep happening as we continue to live it with COVID for some time. So I just want to suggest something that I recently did at my job and create a risk assessment tool. Perhaps the city could develop something like a risk assessment tool for events and standardize what that would be for event and then publicize it on the website. For example, you can include a checklist of things like whether the event, the spacing parameters that you all were discussing, density, proximity to establishments, how many vendors, how many folks you expect. And if you have the tool and, put it in place and assess it per event, can kind of deflect some of the aggravation that comes along with it. And it was really just a suggestion of something I had done recently. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It actually is a very good suggestion. We kind of do that, but it's not in writing. So we do need to come up with a tool. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Sean Hood.
Good evening. Good evening, Ken. Good evening, City Manager, City Council President, City Council members, Commissioner Walsh, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sean Hood. I would just like a detailed explanation as to why the St. Brendan Navigator Festival was singled out in the first place. Obviously, we know the 30 years that the festival's been going on, and I'm just curious as to why the festival was singled out and other events were not. I do thank the city manager and the city council for working with the AOH to keep this function happening. It's a very big function, and all this money does go back to the community. I want to thank you. So that's my big question is why the festival was singled out when other events, cultural and civic, were not chosen.
Yeah, I think as part of my report, I think I've already answered that. Whether it was the Boardwalk Festival, Boardwalk Fairs, whether it's the city's own fall festival, whether it was the fireworks, we've made adjustments to all of those. And when you look at Irish Day, save the polar bears, which is in February, so we're not dealing with that yet. You're between 15 and 20,000 people. And quite frankly, what we were looking at with polar bear was, it's not necessarily the parade. It's not necessarily even the street fair that's afterwards, but combined those two make this a destination event that is unlike any other in the city. And it leads to very crowded places and very tight confined places. It leads to the bars getting overcrowded and packed. And then that's the situation that we're concerned about. So it's not singling out anything. I think we've been very clear about that. It's official communication. We put this announcement out that we had made a proposal to not have the fair at the same time that we made the announcement that Fall Festival was going to be significantly scaled back. So there's been absolutely nothing, that has singled this event out. We've been pretty uniform with all of the events that are within our control that we think poses a concern in light of that.
Okay, thank you. Dan Creighton.
Good evening.
I just wanted to ask some questions. I know we touched on it earlier on Angle Berman. And I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions, but I'll finish up and then you guys can answer after that. Can the council explain to us the agreement that was made with Angle Berman with regards to the IDA and the tax abatements? Let me first state that I am not against Angle Berman, as I feel it's a significant gain to the city. That the developer finally is looking to build within the zoning and building codes that we have. So I really think that that's a huge plus for the city. But that being said, the concessions at this time are not necessarily a good thing for Long Beach. We have, taxes for services rendered. We have sewers, roads, schools, et cetera, that need to be paid for. They'll be receiving these benefits, and in all honesty, the rest of Long Beach, the rest of the residents are going to be picking up the tab. I mean, it's a problem, and I think right now is not the time for it. What did Long Beach have? Did we have any say in the IDA? Were we consulted? If not, shouldn't we at least have a seat at the table so that when these decisions are made that affect us, the residents of Long Beach, we at least have a say as to what abatements are given to these developers? I understand that we're not going to get any less than we're getting now for vacant land, but the revenue for a developed piece of property is significantly larger than it is for a vacant lot. Just for order of magnitude, so that everybody in the room understands, over the 20-year period, what is the difference in taxes that we would have received versus what we're actually going to receive from the developer in 20 years? And I believe it's significant. Again, these are services that are rendered, and we're going to be picking up the tabs. So, just in conclusion, we have serious financial issues here, and we can't continue to do business as usual. It's just not the way we should be doing things. We need to fight for every dollar that we can get because it's coming out of our pockets. Maybe we should look at innovative ideas such as, if the IDA wants to give a tax abatement, maybe they should give it just for Nassau County taxes, and we should still be able to collect Long Beach City school taxes and city taxes. But I think we're past that point now. But to resolve our finances, we only have a few options. We either raise taxes, which nobody wants, we increase our income, or we decrease our spending. And this would have given us significantly more income, but I think, is a problem for us all when we're giving those kind of abatements. And again, I'm not against Angle Berman because I think the development is a great thing, and it's finally great to see a developer build within the zoning that we have allotted for the city. So I'm not against it. I just think that now's not the time to give tax abatements, and the IDA shouldn't be making those decisions without our input.
So I'll tackle that, because this is something I've dealt with since I started. First, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here on how the IGA works, so maybe this will help. And Mr. McNally used to work at Suffolk IGA, he could jump into it. The city has no say in the pilot whatsoever. And if you were paying attention, for example, during the ISAR, it was the residents, and I'm going to take a little credit, you're kind of led by me, that fought the ISAR pilot. Because, quite frankly, it's the Nassau County IDA, the political appointees.
Did you fight this one?
This one was completely different.
Okay.
So, this was completely different. So, the IDA makes this decision completely on their own. They don't ask us, they don't, quite frankly, care what our input is. And I'll tell you now, everybody sitting up here hates this process, because what happens is you have a county commission that is deciding on cutting our local taxes, and we have no say in the matter. And it pisses people off to no end, and it should. And we railed against the IDA over the fact that they were impacting our taxes. None of them live here. None of them pay taxes here, but yet they were deciding what happens with our tax base. So a lot of the stuff you pointed out is correct, and unfortunately, the way the IDA process is set up, there's nothing we can do about it. It's a ridiculous process.
So I got you, John, but are we fighting for a seat at the table? I mean, it's important, if Long Beach is being affected by the IDA giving these abatements to these developers, we should be able to fight, whether it be like going through our Nassau County officials, to get a seat at the table. They should be giving tax abatements to
And I'll just,
Long Beach City, as a separate entity, when the time was part of, but we shouldn't be giving tax abatements to developers that is from a group that we have no say in.
Right.
That's affecting us.
and I'll be happy to talk to you more than you. No, I'm saying, nobody's probably going to disagree with you on that. But unfortunately, that's the process the county set up. No one, I don't think anyone down here likes it, because we don't have a say in our own tax base. So, I know I made a bunch of suggestions to the IDA on how to change their process, and they smiled politely at me and said, "Yeah, thanks." But it is what it is, unfortunately. Looks like Mr. McNally is chilling.
And then just two quick points, let me ask the technical question on whether you could essentially exempt the local municipalities or portions of local municipalities from being subject to the pilot or the exemption. The answer is no. It's written into the law that created the IDAs that regardless of which district it was, the proportional rates that typically get paid with that dollar of taxes need to be exempted the same way, with no exclusions. And then the only other point I would make is, the city did an exhaustive analysis of this where city services versus revenue coming in via the pilot for something like iStar, the city was standing to lose its shirt for the first 18 years and be in the red the first 18 years. This because of the way they're developing these things, looking of condos, which will not be after the construction phase, subject to a pilot, they will be fully on the tax rolls, and the apartments getting phased in. The city analysis by our outside consultants showed that the city was going to be tax positive on this development from day one once they got the CFO on the first day focus.
And I will tell you, Mr. Creighton, that I do take some solace in the fact that there will be a substantial contribution to the school system. So that means we can expect lower property tax increase from the school boards going forward.
There's just one thing you didn't touch on. What is the difference?
Sorry, your time's up, and there's other people.
I got you, but one of my questions is...
Okay, but I'll be happy to talk to you when the meeting's over. If you want to get a crowd over there, we can talk.
No, I got you, but one of the questions I asked is, what is the dollar amount over the 20 years that we're going to be losing between the development and
That information was already addressed at previous city council meetings, so we'll be happy to give that to you.
And I'll just say that the question is something of a fallacy as well, because the developer would make the argument to the IDA, which they obviously accepted that the development wouldn't happen at all, where the tax abatement not granted. So it's sort of a...
Okay. Roy Lester.
See if I can do this. Yeah, it's working. All right. Just a few questions. I'll go through them quickly and see if we can get some answers. Last meeting, Eileen Hessian suggested using the specials to mark the board, some of the boardwalk that are coming up. I'm wondering if that was done. I noticed we only have one bid for the water sewer testing. I understand that the same company that we've been using for years. And I'm not saying anything about the amount or anything like that. I just, as you know, constantly spoken against the idea of only having one bid. Never, it's an advantage to the city to only have one bid. We can still hire the same people, but we should be getting other bids. For Joe Brand, did they want to go over the lid, Joe? They're gonna lid? No.
Oh, for your address, you want to finish, you don't take your time.
Okay. And what was our beach revenue this year?
It was stated earlier by Joe and by Ina that they will give a report at the next meeting to talk about all of the beach revenue. Beach season just ended Monday.
Yeah, we stopped selling a while ago.
It was stated earlier in the meeting that a presentation would be given on beach revenue for the entire season.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the contract for Albany basically has them advising us with respect to labor negotiations. That's one of their chores. And we just hired another law firm today for $48,000, and I know they've been doing it for a while. And we also have a corporate counsel department. And we have, I believe, 4 municipal contracts, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to save money. We're spending an awful lot of money on Albany costs us at the height, the best people, $16.50 an hour, $1,650 an hour for their attorneys. And, it's basically to negotiate it. And, well, not on Albany, I know that, but with the bond people, it's for negotiating. It's just if there were a way to save money on this, it seems like an awful lot of money.
So I will address that first, Rich. What we have is that we have, the firm that came up tonight is a firm that the city has been using, and what we did, instead of being charged by an hourly rate for different cases that we may send to them, we would get a flat fee, which means that we can pick up the phone at any given time on some services that's within that contract and not be charged. As you being a lawyer, you know that everybody specializes in something different. And so to have 1 or 2 lawyers that specialize in one thing and then constantly have to go outside to get somebody else to come in to help us negotiate a contract so it is in the best interest of the city, sometimes we'll have to pay a little bit. So we have 4 different contracts with 4 different unions, and I think it really might be 5. Each union is a little different. And as we go through the restructuring, the job of Albany is to help our council to say, have you taken a look at this? Because that's what their specialty is. Again, being an attorney and me actually being an accountant, I take pride in having other people sit at the table that can give me ideas on how I can save the money. It is a job of the city and the employees to save money, not to overspend. That's why we're going through a restructuring. We're trying to get this city back on the right track, and it is not by overspending money. It is by us trying to do the right thing and saving money.
Well, we're on the same page on that. That's why I questioned this. Okay, Joe, what were you going to say?
With regard to the pool, one of the options was to have the pool line extend over the gutters. Naturally, it had a substantial
I think it was 35,000, 16,000.
What we did was we did in-house. We sanded down completely to its original finish. And we brought a heavy-duty epoxy paint. Sanded everything down, painted everything, took all the breaks off, all the old piping material, sanded that down to the grass, and painted it over, put it there, put the caps on everything, and I'll show you pictures after.
It always does when the new line comes in, but it's only
But it
expected.
does really make a difference.
Yes, it's expected to last 8 years or more. 10. We have a guarantee for 10? Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you. Eileen Hession.
Yes? Eileen Hession, Long Beach. Yes, Roy mentioned that I had asked about the boardwalk popping up. I think that maybe possibly some of them have been screwed, but now there are more that are unscrewed. So somebody's got to look at that before somebody falls. The other question I had asked last meeting was about
fines if they're being collected for dogs and bikes on the boardwalk and jetties and so forth, and how much money did we collect? I know now that summer is over, they don't matter so much. The other thing I wanted to ask or mention is somebody mentioned that AOH was singled out, and I would say that they weren't singled out. And a couple of the other places were, I'm involved with the civics, and our movies on the beach were severely limited. Our concerts on the boardwalk were limited. I am also on the senior board, and the attendance at the senior exercise classes and so forth have been severely limited. The amount of people allowed in the pool have been limited, and I thank you for all of those things. Even though sometimes I can't get into the exercise class that I want because it's full, I understand the reason why. I would rather not get COVID than attend my exercise class. And the other thing is, the gentleman who brought up Haberman also mentioned something like, why don't you involve the people? I come to almost every city council meeting because I want to be involved. And when the Haberman thing was up, how many years ago? How many meetings did we attend? I think the last one was at the Allegria Hotel. I don't know if that gentleman attended that meeting or any of them, but the people of Long Beach were asked their opinions. They were given the opportunity to take a microphone and talk about it. There were some very heated discussions, but we were involved. I have no control over what the IDA can do. I'm not happy about it. I don't want the huge buildings up there, but I was involved in what was talked about. So I think the council has included the people. Thank you.
And from out in the bleachers, Bill Holtmeyer.
As you heard, and thanks Joe for giving a presentation, summing up what's going on. So a little longer than, it's actually been almost 2 months of informal. We reached out to the city back right after the 4th of July. And we've engaged in some non-informal and formal conversations. We're getting close, but we're not there yet. And tomorrow's 22 days before Irish Day. With the police commissioner, the parks commissioner, assistant city manager, all 5 members of the council. I don't know if you guys can go down and grab a quick cup of coffee somewhere, but we really need this. Normally, we sent our stuff out in May and June, and now it's September. And, we've gone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There used to be an agreement between the AOH and the city, a handshake, conversation. The city now has involved a third party. Our permit for the public that does not know goes till 5 p.m. After that, it's the city. And what's going on now are negotiations that do not include the AOH, and the AOH has no control. So we can't wait anymore. Vendors are not just going to come 2 days after we send them. Snail mail is obviously out of the way. We have to do everything, email, phone calls. The AOH is a strictly volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid. 30 years, nobody has got paid. We do this on our own time. Most of us have to work. Our chief negotiator has spent more time on this than I think he did in his 30 years of NYPD. It is critical that we get an answer tomorrow. Critical. We want to have this event. The other thing, I was glad to hear that it was mentioned that a rogue employee made the error of posting on Facebook that the festival was canceled. And it's great that nobody here was involved. But somebody who's on the city payroll was involved. And it's great that you apologize for that. But you apologize in front of an audience of 100, which we have about 60 AOH people here. I think the city would really show that they want to apologize.
is go on your official Facebook page and tell us and apologize for that statement, and explain it. You did wake up the sleeping giant, as you know, because we obviously responded. And then after that, we can't control what people say in social media. We have no intentions of going out to social media. First bullet is calling on private road employee. So I appreciate it if you would just go on the Facebook page. You know, I worked in the media for 25 years. And you make this error on page 1. The retraction is on page 72. Just please make it right so everybody knows what's going on. Let's work together and let's try to pull this off. Thank you very much for everything.
I don't recall us ever saying we have a rogue employee. Also, I'm going to ask John McNally to respond to the alleged rogue employee and how it got on Facebook. Please go ahead, John.
So, I mean, if you want to have the next person go, I'm just trying to track down the post. Oh, okay. So here's the post verbatim, unedited. I would be that rogue employee, I suppose. As always, the City of Long Beach's primary concern is for the health, safety, and security of our residents, visitors, and workforce with COVID cases on the rise. As we look forward to the fall, the following adjustments are being made to upcoming activities. October 2nd, Irish Day. The city has been in discussion with the AOH and has proposed moving forward with the parade to honor St. Brendan, but without the street fair that typically follows, as to reduce the potential exposure of our residents and visitors to COVID. The city awaits confirmation from the AOH. I do not hear a cancel in there. I hear a proposed and awaits decision. That is all that has been posted.
Read it again. Proposed.
So October 2nd, Irish Day, the city has been in discussion with the Ancient Order of Hibernians, AOH, and has proposed moving forward with the parade to honor St. Brendan, but without the street fair that typically follows. Proposed.
Oh, okay, without the festival.
Right, so that was what was proposed. The city has proposed this, and we await confirmation from the AOH.
But weren't you under negotiations in good faith and private?
So we are updating folks of where we are because we understand it takes months to plan these things. So we are giving folks an update. This was also subsequent to that, October 9th Fall Festival. In lieu of the larger Fall Festival, we're moving forward with COVID. So nowhere in there is there a cancellation. So, I mean, we've been very good discussions as of late. We'd like to keep them that way. But I think any read of this does not show canceling. So we can agree to disagree on the read, but there was never a statement put out by the city. I am the person posting this stuff by and large along with my team, but there was never anything that definitively said this was canceled. This is what the city proposed, and we were awaiting confirmation from the AOH. That's all that was ever put out.
I just want to make a point of clarification. Again, my name is Karen McGinnis, I am a ladies AOH member of Division 17 for about 10 years. I'm a former officer. I'm second generation Irish American. This has been a very difficult situation for the administration and the council. This is not an adversarial situation to me. This is not an us versus them. I look back at the mission of the AOH, which is friendship, Christian unity, and charity, I believe. And that's what I kept thinking over the past few months as the negotiations went on. I also thought about, Bill, you just pointed out how the city used to have a handshake agreement about how the festival went on in the past. And that statement is exactly what puts me in a very difficult and upsetting situation. Because the city used to work on handshakes. And that's how we ended up in this mess. That's why O'Melveny is here and M3. Because things were done with handshakes. Government is about equality and equal distribution of resources. It's not about who you know. and who you have handshakes with. It's about working with the administration. And this administration is a professional administration. Donna and her department heads, I would fall for any one of them. We are the elected officials, and we are the ones responsible for making sure that we have an administration that is professional. And when the department heads and Donna tell me that they are concerned about Irish Day, my job, even though I am an AOH member, is to respect them and to listen to them. And yes, it's been a little messy. And I remember when I was inaugurated, that's what I said that day when I was in this room. It's going to be messy. But we don't work on handshakes anymore. And I've been quoted in Newsday on that. And we're not going to work on handshakes going forward. So yes, let's get back to the table. Let's get this done. We know we love Irish Day. We know we love Long Beach. And there's no discrimination here. This is about what's best for all of the residents of Long Beach, no matter what religion, creed, race, denomination you are. Let's remember that. Thank you.
All right, Jamie Lynch.
Good evening. I want to thank the council for coming to an understanding, in part, so that this festival can go on. That's what it's all about, negotiation. You negotiate till you can't negotiate anymore. I think what is missed, and it was missed, in subsequent meetings, is what the AOH does. What they do publicly, what they do privately, is mixed. Because we don't publicize how we help people. Ladies AOH, men's AOH. We go out there and we raise funds. This is not a good old boys club. We just run down the street and have a party on Beach Street. It's a necessity to have this event to support the school kitchen, St. Mary's, St. Ignatius, Sacred Heart, and all the others. Donna, I had a great meeting with you a week ago, and you gave me your understanding, and I appreciate your position. You have a job to do. But somewhere in between the job, your position, what people want and what people need, there's a lot of in between. And this somehow has turned from COVID to getting things off Beach Street. Not by your position, but by further conversation. This is the backroom talk. You know, and I just have to say this. I've been here 19 years. And some of the AOH people and others, John, you were there, board night, running things, Karen. There's about 5% of people that volunteer their time in this town. And everybody else just bitches. So my point is, where are those people that don't want to have something? These people are volunteering their time, and they can stand there and tell you exactly what they're doing, where the funds go. And that's an important part. And what it does is it helps. Everything else is done for a reason, and an ancillary reason, to bring business to Long Beach. That's why I'm on the Chamber of Commerce. I promote things coming to Long Beach. Like it or not, you don't want development? It brings commerce to Long Beach. That's what we do. This is an important thing that's going on here. I'm glad that the city is listening, but I think this thing could be solved tonight with just the training. And it should be, so that we can move forward and say, here's the ground rules, here's the rules so that we can move forward and start letting our vendors and so forth know. Listen, we're at a crossroads. Joe spoke about it. Let's put it to bed. Everything else can be negotiated along the way. But we have to be able to cover vendors. Because if you choke this thing to death, there is no festival.
So what we're asking you to do is plain and simple, allow them to move forward in signing up vendors, and we can negotiate the other things along the way. It has to happen, and we would appreciate that the council hears that and understands and acts on it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that was the last speaker of the night, folks, so thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of your night.